Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson. Thank you for tuning in to The Run, whether you're listening on the podcast version on Spotify or iPodcast, or if you're here with me live listening at 89.1 WIDR, Kalamazoo Radio. That's Wider Radio. All right, man, to move on to our first topic. So the NBA, everybody knows about tampering. To move on to our first topic, the NBA is upping the rules on tampering now. So it was in the past where if you were talking to a player or trying to persuade a player to come play for your team, you were getting fined, whether you were a player, whether you were an organization. That's just how it worked. And for those of you who don't quite know what tampering is, basically, it's just trying to persuade another player to come play with your organization or making your city sound so much better than the city they're in so they can come play in your organization. That's as simple as it can be, honestly, just persuasion. That's what the NBA calls tampering. Now, the NBA, what they have recently did is they've raised the fine up to $10 million for any organization that's been caught tampering. So if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, they don't really have a reason to be tampering right now because they got so many players. But they find out that front office is tampering somehow, trying to get another player there. They're fined for it. They're getting fined. Now, some people may say, well, how would the NBA even know if you're tampering? Because, I mean, this is kind of personal, especially for player-on-player type of action. So how could they even know if this is tampering? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Now, listen carefully. The NBA, certain committees within the NBA, they proposed multiple things that can decide if someone is tampering or not. So now they made it where you have to wait until a certain point into the season where you can only contact the player and try to get them, or you can't even try to get them. You can't really persuade them at that point. You can only just contact them after a certain point in the season. And also they made it where you cannot contact the player who's under contract. So if this player is under contract with a different team, you can't even hit him up and try and see what he's thinking if he's coming up to free agency. So it's very difficult for organizations and front offices to tamper with players. But my thing is, regardless of how much emphasis you put on front offices tampering, it's going to happen. It's tampering. I mean, you can't stop player and player interaction with each other. If LeBron James and Chris Paul is good friends off the court, you can't stop them from communicating unless you tapping their phones and being all into their social media. But if that's not happening, then it's absolutely no way you're going to be able to find someone for tampering. They also, this is another thing that they've changed with the tampering rules. Players can be fined up to $250K now. I'm sure it's higher than what it is, but for certain players, it may not hurt. With others, it will, especially if you only got a 10-day contract, but you ain't got no business tampering anyway if you're on a 10-day contract. I don't know why the hell you would be tampering from the jump. If you have a small contract or if you're not a big-name player, it ain't really a reason for you to be out here trying to recruit people to come play for your team. It's pointless at that point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense at all. But for organizations, I can see a little bit where they're like, okay, if you're in a city like LA and you want a player from Milwaukee, that kind of makes sense because, you know, most people will want to go to LA before they go to Milwaukee. And that's just how it is, especially when a player has to choose on where he wants to live and where he wants to be and move with his family and things like that. So that I can understand that. But at the end of the day, then again, organizations aren't really going to $10 million not going to hurt them in the long run. It'll hurt them in a week, but it's not going to hurt them in the long run. If they plan on making adjustments throughout a month or something, or changing things within the organization within a month, it might have a small impact. But $10 million to an NBA organization, you got to realize these organizations are worth billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. So for $10 million, it might not hurt. And some people may say, well, you're looking at it on too broad of a scale. You got to shrink it down just a little bit. Shrink it down, man. Condense the numbers and then look at it, how much $10 million will hurt. Okay, well, if the New York Knicks, this is the team, they're still one of the most valuable franchises in the NBA. How? I don't know. It's New York. That's the only reason how. That's my only answer for that, is because they're New York. That's the only reason I have for why they're still the top valuable franchise in the NBA. That's the only reason I have for that. But other than that, they bring in I'm gonna say about, because I'm sure it's not exact. I don't know the exact amount, but I'm gonna give you a rough estimate. So the New York Knicks, this is a team who has never won a championship, not really that good, have not been good the last few years, not really good this year. They haven't had much success within the last 10 years. I'll just go back that far. But yet this organization is still bringing in about $2.9 million per game. So if they have 4 games in a week, you can do the math and figure out, okay, well, 2.9 million times 4, oh, okay, they sitting on a pretty good amount. So it's $10 million is not going to hurt an organization, especially when you think of an organization like the Golden State Warriors. That's not going to hurt them. If the New York Knicks is bringing in $2.9 million, I wonder how much the Golden State Warriors are bringing in. And I think the Golden State Warriors is probably about $3.9 million as well. But still, this organization is profiting way more than the New York Knicks. Way more by far. But either way it goes, whether they're profiting or not, if the Knicks get caught tampering, it's still not going to hurt them. And they don't win anything. Maybe I should have looked at a very, very small market in the league, but I happen to just use a team with a small winning percentage, which was the New York Knicks. But it may not be the same for every team, especially if your team is playing in a small city. So you got to kind of take that into consideration. But if the New York Knicks is bringing in $2.9 million, and even if teams are only bringing in $1.5 million, even if an organization is only bringing in that much, you have to think that's still, within a month, they're still bringing in a good amount of revenue now. That's 30 days in a month. 1.5 million is going to add up. So if they get fined for tampering, it's not going to really hurt them. It's not going to be that bad. I kind of look at tampering like jaywalking. I never got a ticket for jaywalking, but that's the thing. You might not get caught in the NBA. You might not get caught for tampering, especially if it's a player. If it's player on player, I highly doubt that people are going to get caught for tampering. But if it's organizations, people in the front office, yes, they're being very particular about this, man. They're up in the investigations, all kind of things. So some of the other proposals that was offered, I'm gonna read straight from ESPN. I'm gonna let you know. It says a requirement that teams preserve communications with players that their agents for 1 year. That's one of them. Another proposes new channels for teams and employees to anonymously report rules and violations for tampering. So they're going to create a new source for front offices and agents to connect. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, they're putting the limits so far ahead, man, when really it can't be stopped. Because if I'm in the front office and I see all these new tampering rules, I'm going to be honest. This is exactly what I would say. If I'm president of basketball operations for any team, the Sacramento Kings, I'm just use them as an example. And I know that they're buckling down on tampering, this is exactly what I would do. I would tell my star player, okay, De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, whoever, Bagley, look, I need y'all. We got to get this guy. we got to get this guy. It has to happen. So I can't reach out to him because I work in the office and I'm president of basketball operations, but you have to go reach out to him and somehow connect with him, at least bring the idea to mind that you want him to come play with you guys. If go hang out with him or something, man. And I mean, hey, let's get it going. Let's get it cracking. Like, we need this guy to play on our team. So get involved, connect with him, and bring him to Sacramento. And it's really that simple if you're an NBA agent or if you're working in a front office, because that kind of thing, I'm sure they'll find some kind of way to try and stop that. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get hit with any of the fines because you didn't reach out to a different player directly while he's under contract. Because at the end of the day, regardless of how many rules the NBA is establishing on tampering, they cannot stop player on player. They can't stop player on player communication. If guys are friends, AD wanted to go play with LeBron. You see it happen. It happened. Kevin Durant and Kyrie wanted to go play with each other. You see that happen. Kawhi, Paul George. They wanted to go play with each other. It happened. Russell Westbrook, Harden. I mean, it's really no way. It's at a point where, because players' relationships are so close, and a lot of these guys play AAU together when they're growing up. They compete against each other in college ball. If not on the same team, they already have that connection with one another. So it's really not that difficult for somebody to just hit them up on the cell phone. And if they got each other's number, it's not that difficult just to be like, all right, look, man, you should make a trip out to L.A. Come hang out with us, man. You're going to love the city, and eventually you're going to come play for here. Ha, ha, ha. Like, you know, it's easy to just establish that small connection if you already have that connection with the different player and bring it there. Now, $250,000 of players for tampering? Yes, that can hit somebody hard in the pockets. Especially, like I said, depending on what kind of contract you have, that can definitely hit you hard in the pockets. But it's no telling how they're going to be able to find out that you're tampering, to be exact. It's not really evidence. Only way they could possibly be able to find out if a player is tampering is if they tap the phones. And other than that, the tampering rules, man, it's something that can't be stopped. I don't know why the NBA is still like trying to prolong this stage of tampering. It's going to happen regardless. It's like jaywalking. Honestly, I really look at it like jaywalking. You can, and for those of you who don't know what jaywalking is, because I know everybody may not know, but it's basically when you walking in traffic without the light saying that you can walk, without the walking symbol popping up saying that you can walk, and you decide to walk across. You see no traffic and you just want to walk across. That's all it is. And I've never got a ticket for that. I've never got, and hopefully I never do, of course, but I'm sure the ticket is not going to be like a speeding ticket, or it's not going to be like a huge ticket where I'm gonna get put on probation, or it's not gonna be any situation like that. And that's the same thing with this tampering rule, man. They gotta just let it go and realize that players are gonna go play wherever they want to, honestly.